Sub items in Monday.com. In this video, I'm going to be explaining what they are, how to use them, and how to automate them to save you and your team loads of time. Just before we get into the video, if you need any help with Monday.com at all, check the link below. So without further ado, as you can see, we are on Monday.com and I am just on a demo board inside of a demo system. And what I firstly want to do is explain exactly what sub items are. Now, there are a few misconceptions around sub items, but let me clear those up very, very quickly. I would strongly recommend not tracking data inside of a sub item. So if you have client data or project data, I would be opposed or strongly opposed to tracking data inside of the sub items area. The reason I say this is because it's a lot harder to access and manipulate data in the sub items area as opposed to the actual items area. Okay, so what we would only ever use sub items for is to track tasks and assign tasks to relevant individuals within an organization. Okay, so obviously tasks are going to have some information, some data on what actually needs to be done, but it's not going to be as extensive as tracking column after column after column of data, which we have seen for some of our clients, and they've really struggled to make that work. So rule number one, only use sub items for tasks and things you need you or other people to do in relation to an item. Secondly, how do you actually access sub items? So it's super easy. As you can see here, there's like a drop down arrow on the left hand side, but if you do not already have a sub item associated with an item, then you might not be able to see it. So all you need to do is hover over the actual item where the name is, and you'll see a very faint arrow. Just use that drop down menu, and all you need to do is write in an example task. Let's say example task number 2, press enter, and as you can see, that arrow is now visible, and there is a 1 number on the right hand side of the name of the item, which denotes the number of sub items associated with that particular item. So if I add another sub item, that will go to 2, and so on and so forth. I'm sure you get the idea. And then this is where we're going to want to manage our tasks in relation to a particular item. So what I would always recommend doing is you would assign a task to a particular person within your organization in relation to that item. So let's say they need to do a follow-up call, for example, or they need to create an ad set, or whatever the case may be. This is where you would assign that information. You then have, and you do that by using the person column here, which is called owner. We then have status column. So this is the status for managing our sub items. Now, the traditional and standard status options that are offered by Monday.com maybe suffice in some instances. In other instances, you're more than welcome to change it to be more bespoke to your business and be slightly more accommodating. Either way, it is absolutely fine, whatever you do. But just bear in mind that you need to set the done column, because if you are planning on using the My Work page to manage your workload, then you need to be able to tick it off to mark it as complete. Now, in order to change this, just go to the 3 dotted button up the top, go to settings, and then go to customize status column. And as you can see here, you get this option which allows you to select which color indicates that an item has been completed. So at the moment, and always as a standard default throughout Monday.com, it's going to be the green, the done green, but you can change this to another color. And if you are adjusting colors and what status is what and what means what inside of the system, then this is where you need to make that change. Okay. And then moving on from there, this is just another top tip for you on the date column. If you press the 3 dotted button on the right hand side, what we can do is go to settings and set this as a deadline date column. So as opposed to being a standard date, if you set it as a deadline date, all you need to do is choose the status that relates to the deadline, and also choose the person, if you would like to, that's associated with the deadline as well. And what it does, it connects all 3 of those columns together, like you can see in this graphic here. And you can see when things are due, overdue, and have been completed as well. And I press the connect columns button, and I will show you an example. So let's say the deadline is for next week or in a couple of weeks time. If I change the status to done, that ticks off and puts a line through it. It's quite a cool animation. If you put working on it, it will remain the same. If you put stuck, etc. But if I change the date to the week before, you will then be alerted with a 6 days overdue warning sign. You can then change that to done as well, and that will be marked off. But this then replicates inside of the sub items area, and it's really useful means of just managing tasks that people need to be completed, and is very fitting for sub items inside of Monday.com. Now, one final thing that I want to show you about the basic functionality of sub items is you can mirror the status of all sub items on the actual item area. So as you can see, you always have to click in to your item to see your sub items. But imagine a world in which you could see the status of all of them just from the actual items area. Well, in this very brief moment of time, I'm about to reveal exactly how to do that. So if you click down again, and what we would often want to do is mirror the status column, you need to go ahead and you press the 3 dotted button on the right hand side, and then you will see here as an option, show summary on parent item. If you go ahead and click that, that will show you a summary of all of your sub items. So if I go and add an example task number 3, let's say, you can see here that I've got a summary, and it will show me what that summary looks like. So if I change this to stuck and then click away, this will show me that 1 out of 2 of my sub items being completed, and the other half, the remaining 50%, is stuck. And the more sub items you add, the more of an average you'll get, and obviously all of the information is factored into the sub items status mirror, which is really, really useful for managing all of your sub items. Okay, so hopefully you're familiar with what sub items are, the basic functionality around it. Now in the final piece of this video, I'm just going to show you how to actually automate them to save you and your team loads and loads of time. Okay, this is really, really powerful, and you can get as extensive as you want with this, but I'm just going to show you the core functionality. So if we go to automate in the top right hand corner and then just go to board automations at the top here, what we want to do is add a new automation. And in this instance, just for the example and the sake of this video, I'm just going to add a basic trigger. So we've got triggers and then we've got actions. So when the status changes, hypothetically speaking, when status, and then we can select either the sub item column or the actual main item column. In this instance, again, I'm not going to overcomplicate things. It's just going to be the main status column. Changes to, and let's just say working on it just for example's sake, then what we can do is we can automate sub items to be created. So create sub item, and then let's just call this example automation, if I can spell correctly, and then number 4, hypothetically. And then we can automatically set the owner, the status, and the date. The only issue with the date column is you can't push it by, let's say, 10 days. That's the only caveat to this, is you cannot say, so today's the 10th of July, I want to create a sub item with a date or a due date in 10 days time. That's not possible. You'd have to select the actual date, which is a bit of a pain. I'm sure Monday.com will fix that in the coming days, months or years, whenever they get around to it. But that's not available as functionality at the moment, unfortunately. The other beauty of this is we can create multiple sub items. So if I just write in sub item again and then go ahead and select that and just put example automation number 5, and then again I can select the owner, I can select the status. Let's say on this one I want to select stuck, and I could select the date, but it's always going to populate as 10th of July. It's never going to be 10th of July plus 10 days. You can't write that automation like I mentioned. Okay, and then you can go ahead and create the automation, and now what I'll do is I'll head back to the actual board itself and I'm going to demonstrate how that works. So as you can see here, I've got item number 2. There are absolutely no sub items on here at the moment. What I'm going to do is just change the status, which was our trigger, to working on it. And then hopefully, if Monday.com is feeling generous, that should then automatically generate 2 sub items. So you can see here, those 2 have just automatically populated based on me changing the status of the item. So example automation number 4 and example automation number 5, we've got working on it and stuck. That set the date. Like I said, we've got the date issue, so on and so forth. That would also define the owner had I defined an owner on the automation itself. Now I'll give you a couple of use cases for this. I would probably look to use this functionality if, let's say, a new client had signed up and I wanted to onboard them. There are a load of new things that needed to be done in order to onboard a new client. I'd probably have them as sub items assigned to various people within the organization whose responsibility it is to do whatever. And then you could automate that based on the trigger of either a new item being created or a status being changed to close one, whatever the case may be. And then that information would populate onto their My Work page and so on and so forth. So that is sub items in a nutshell. Of course, the automations could be as advanced as you like. That I've literally just touched the sides with that sort of thing. And we've got some really wild use cases of when sub items are helpful, but I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole in this video. I think I've rambled on enough. I'm hoping this video has been helpful, and you are very familiar with how to use sub items in Monday, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.